shadows and silhouettes. Jackson Mercer adjusted his custom-tailored suit jacket as he stepped out of the private helicopter. The crisp mountain air of Colorado filled his lungs, a stark contrast to the recycled oxygen of his Seattle penthouse. Somewhere below, nestled in a private valley retreat, his oldest friend Daniel was preparing to marry the woman who had finally cracked his cynical shell. "Mr. Mercer, your luggage will be delivered to your cabin," the pilot informed him. Jackson nodded, his expression neutral, despite the unease churning inside him. This wedding meant 3 days of socializing, of manufactured smiles and deflecting questions about his next venture, when all he truly wanted was solitude. But he'd made a promise to Daniel years ago before the accident that had claimed his brother, James, and left Jackson with both a technology empire and a void no success could fill. At 4, Jackson had mastered the art of presence without participation. The Forbes feature last month had called him brilliantly distant, a description that had amused his PR team and troubled no one. His Mercertech software powered half the world's security systems. People expected genius to come with quirks. The main lodge loomed ahead, its rustic luxury exactly what he'd expect from Daniel's fiancée Natalie. As he approached, the sound of a cello stopped him. The melody was haunting, not a wedding tune, but something bittersweet that seemed to capture the precise feeling of standing at the edge of something beautiful. While afraid to fall, Jackson followed the music to a side garden. There, seated on a stone bench with her eyes closed, a woman played as if no one was listening. Her dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and her simple linen dress suggested she wasn't part of the usual crowd. Daniel and Natalie moved in. He stood silently, unwilling to disturb whatever moment was unfolding. The piece concluded, and she opened her eyes, startling slightly at his presence. "I'm sorry," Jackson said automatically. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't," she replied, her voice warm but steady. "Music isn't truly heard unless someone's listening." She extended her hand. "Olivia Bennett. I'm the bride's friend and designated emotional support human." Jackson took her hand, surprised by the calluses on her fingertips. Jackson Mercer, groom's friend and reluctant best man. Recognition flickered in her eyes, the usual reaction to his name, but instead of launching into questions about his company or his fortune, she simply smiled. "Reluctant? That makes 2 of us who'd rather be somewhere else." "You don't strike me as reluctant," Jackson observed. "I love Natalie dearly, but large gatherings drain me." She gestured to her cello. "This is how I recharge." "Batches sweet no one?" he asked, surprising himself by speaking. Olivia's eyebrows rose. "A tech mogul who knows classical music." "Daniel didn't mention that." "There's a lot Daniel doesn't mention about me." Jackson's tone was clipped enough to end most conversations instead of retreating. Olivia studied him, her gaze neither invasive nor intimidated. "Good, I prefer discovering people on my own terms." She stood, gathering her instrument. "I should find Natalie before she sends a search party. The welcome dinner starts at 7, and I've been informed my absence is non-negotiable." "As is mine, apparently," Jackson replied. "Then I'll see you there, Mr. Mercer." She paused, then added, "The acoustics in the East Garden are better, if you're looking for silence tomorrow. Nobody goes there because of the morning shadows." With that, she walked away, leaving Jackson with the strange sensation that he'd been both seen and granted privacy in the same moment. A courtesy so rare in his world that he'd forgotten how it felt. For the first time since arriving, the weight of the coming days felt slightly less oppressive. Resonance. The welcome dinner was exactly as Jackson had anticipated, crystal glasses catching the light, polite laughter punctuating carefully crafted conversations, and curious glances directed his way. He positioned himself at the corner of the table, strategic distance maintained. From the center of attention, Daniel caught his eye from across the room and raised his glass in silent acknowledgement. They'd been friends since college, before Mercertech became a household name, before Jackson's walls had calcified into something impenetrable. Daniel was perhaps the only person who remembered the version of Jackson that existed before. "You're doing that thing again," came a voice beside him. Jackson turned to find Olivia taking the empty seat, her earlier casual attire replaced with a simple navy dress. No diamonds, no designer labels, just a small silver pendant shaped like a music note. "What thing?" he asked, observing everyone like they're behind glass. She accepted a glass of wine from a passing server. "It's a useful skill, until you forget how to step back into the room." Jackson felt an unexpected flicker of amusement. "Are you always this direct with strangers?" "Only the interesting ones," Olivia smiled. "Besides, as the best man and the maid of honor, we'll be paired for photos, dances, and various wedding absurdities. Might as well establish honest communication now." Before Jackson could respond, Natalie appeared, radiant in her happiness. "Live, there you are. I need to steal you for introductions." Olivia squeezed Jackson's arm lightly. "Remember garden, morning shadows," she whispered before following Natalie into the crowd. The next morning found Jackson exactly where Olivia had suggested. The East Garden was indeed deserted, misty in the early light, with stone benches arranged around a small fountain. He'd come seeking solitude but found himself checking his watch, wondering if her recommendation had been a casual observation or something more. At precisely 7:30, the soft crunch of footsteps announced her arrival. Olivia carried 2 coffee cups and a leather messenger bag. "I thought you might be here," she said, offering him a cup. "Black, no sugar," Daniel said. "That's how you take it." Jackson accepted the coffee. "Is this where you ask me about Mercer Tech's rumored government contracts or my thoughts on neural interface patents?" "Actually," Olivia settled on the bench opposite him, "this is where I work on Natalie's wedding gift while hiding from the wedding planner, who keeps trying to put me in heels for the rehearsal." She pulled out a leather-bound journal. "You just happen to be good camouflage. No one disturbs the intimidating billionaire." For the first time in months, Jackson felt himself genuinely smile, glad to be of service. They sat in companionable silence, Olivia sketching, Jackson reading messages on his phone. Occasionally, she would hum fragments of melodies, testing them against whatever she was writing. "You're composing," he observed eventually. "A wedding piece." "I'm a music therapist by profession. I work with trauma patients at Denver Memorial." She looked up from her notation. "Music bridges gaps when words fail. The right progression can reach places in the brain that speech can't touch." Something in her explanation resonated deeper than Jackson wanted to admit. "Does it work, your therapy?" "Not always," she answered honestly, "but more often than you'd think. The brain's capacity for rewiring itself is remarkable, especially when we engage multiple pathways simultaneously." Jackson studied her, seeing beyond the surface for the first time. "Is that why you were playing batch yesterday? Therapy for wedding stress?" Olivia's expression softened. "Actually, I was playing for someone else entirely." She hesitated, then continued. "My sister Claire was supposed to be here. She died last year, car accident. Batch was her favorite." The revelation hung between them. Jackson felt the familiar pressure in his chest, the one that appeared whenever conversations veered too close to his own grief. "I'm sorry," he said, the words inadequate but sincere. "Thank you." Olivia closed her journal. "Claire lived fully, pursued archaeology, traveled constantly, loved deeply. After she died, I found myself playing her favorite pieces, not to mourn what I'd lost, but to celebrate what she'd experienced." Jackson's phone buzzed with an incoming call, his CFO with an urgent acquisition question. Grateful for the interruption, he stood. "I need to take this." Olivia nodded in understanding. "The wedding coordinator meeting is at 2. I'll save you a seat in the back row." Something about her invitation, casual without expectation, made Jackson pause. "I'd appreciate that." As he walked away to take the call, Jackson realized that for the first time since arriving, he was looking forward to something at this wedding. The revelation was small but significant, like the first green shoot after a long winter. Behind him, Olivia began to play again, a new melody weaving through the morning air, not somber like yesterday's, but something tentative and questioning, with hints of possibility in every note. Distance. The rehearsal dinner should have been simpler. Final gathering before the ceremony. Jackson had delivered his practice toast, fulfilling his duties with the precision that characterized his business dealings. But as guests dispersed into smaller conversations, the weight of memory pressed against him. "Dance with me." Olivia appeared at his side, extending her hand. Jackson hesitated. "I don't dance." "Everyone dances," she countered. "Some just forget how." Before he could refuse again, Daniel's grandmother requested Olivia play something on the venue's grand piano. As Olivia moved to the instrument, Jackson found himself following, drawn to the periphery of the small crowd gathering. Her fingers found the keys, and a gentle melody filled the room. Not classical this time, but something original, notes flowing together in a conversation of sound that made Jackson's chest tighten with unexpected emotion. When she finished, their eyes met across the room. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps of kindred wounded souls. Later, as moonlight spilled across the terrace, they found themselves alone among the remnants of the evening. "You never told me why you're really here," Olivia said softly. "Daniel mentioned you haven't attended events like this in years." Jackson looked away. "A promise is a promise, even when it hurts. Especially then." The words came out sharper than intended. Olivia didn't flinch. Instead, she moved closer. "Who was it, Jackson?" The direct question struck like a physical blow. 3 years of carefully constructed deflection crumbled under her quiet inquiry. "My brother," he finally said. "James. We were driving back from a potential acquisition meeting. I was taking a cul de sac. The truck came from nowhere." His voice grew distant. "He was getting married that summer." Understanding dawned in Olivia's eyes. "And now you're at a wedding as best man. Ironic, isn't it?" His laugh held no humor. "The papers called it a tragic accident. They never mentioned that I was driving." "Is that why you built those walls? Punishment?" Jackson's expression hardened. "You don't know me, Olivia. 2 days of conversations don't give you the right to analyze me." "You're right," she said simply. "I don't know you, but I recognize the look of someone carrying blame that's grown too heavy." He stepped back. "This conversation is over. Jackson, good night." Olivia, he walked away, each step restoring the distance he needed from her. From emotions too long suppressed. From possibilities he had no right to explore. Cadence. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect blue skies, nature's blessing on Daniel and Natalie's union. Jackson stood at his cabin window, adjusting his tie with mechanical precision. his conversation with Olivia replaying in his mind. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. When he opened it, he found not Olivia, but a folded piece of paper with his name. Inside was a musical score hand-notated with a simple message. "This is how I hear you. Not broken, just unfinished." Oh, Jackson stared at the notes, unable to hear them but somehow understanding their intent. He folded the paper carefully into his jacket pocket. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. Vows exchanged against the backdrop of mountain vistas. Jackson performed his duties flawlessly, though his eyes frequently found Olivia across the aisle, radiant in her maid of honor dress, her expression both solemn and joyful. During the reception after speeches and first dances, Jackson found himself approaching the small orchestra. "Could I make a request?" he asked the pianist, slipping the folded score from his pocket. The musician glanced at the notation. The composer would need to play this. It's complex. As if summoned, Olivia appeared. "I'll play it," she said, her eyes questioning as they met Jackson's. "Please," was all he said. The reception guests quieted as Olivia took her place at the piano. The first notes emerged hesitantly, a theme in minor key, searching and uncertain. As the piece progressed, it transformed on into something triumphant, but into something honest, carrying both sorrow and resilience. When the final note faded, Jackson was no longer at the periphery but standing beside the piano, exposed in a way he hadn't been in years. "That's how you hear me?" he asked quietly. "That's how you are," she answered. "Unfinished symphonies are still beautiful, Jackson." Later, away from celebrating guests, they walked the property's edge where forest met manicured lawn. "I looked you up," Jackson admitted. "Your work with trauma patients, the studies you've published." Olivia nodded. "And you're pioneering neurological approaches that Mercer Tech's medical division has been pursuing for years." He paused. "We've been focusing on technology, but you're focusing on the human element. Both have their place," she said. "Technology can rebuild pathways, but music helps people want to walk those paths again." Jackson stopped walking. "I've been stuck, Olivia. For 3 years, I don't know how to move forward." She took his hand, a gesture so simple yet profound in its acceptance. "You already are." Harmony. 3 months after the wedding, Jackson stood in the lobby of Denver Memorial Hospital. The newly established Mercer Burnett Music Therapy Wing would open officially next week, but today was personal. Olivia met him at the entrance, professional in her lab coat, yet radiant with purpose. "Ready?" she asked. "Not remotely," he admitted, "but that's the point, isn't it?" She led him to a room where a patient waited, a young woman, Rebecca, recovering from a traumatic brain injury. Her eyes widened in recognition of Jackson, but Olivia gently redirected. "Remember what we discussed, Rebecca? Today we're trying something new." Jackson sat awkwardly with the guitar Olivia handed him. His fingers found the chords they'd practiced over weekly video. Cold, simple progressions that felt foreign yet increasingly natural. As Rebecca began to tap along, finding rhythm where speech still failed her, Jackson felt something unlock within himself. Here was purpose beyond penance, connection beyond isolation. Later, walking through the Denver evening, Olivia slipped her hand into her gesture that had become familiar over months of cautious connection. "You were right," Jackson said, "about music reaching places words can't. And you were right to fund this program," she countered. "Technology and humanity working together." They stopped at a small park overlooking the city lights. The autumn air carried the promise of winter, yet felt somehow warming. "I have something for you," Jackson said, reaching into his pocket. He produced not a jewelry box, as might be expected, but a small digital device. Mercer Tech's newest prototype. It captures brainwave patterns during emotional responses and translates them into musical notation. Olivia's eyes widened as she examined it. "This could revolutionize how we understand emotional processing in trauma patients." "It needs refining," Jackson cautioned. "That's why I'm staying in Denver for the foreseeable future, if you'll have me as a research partner." Olivia's smile held understanding beyond words. "Research partner? Is that what we're calling this?" "For now," Jackson said, allowing himself to smile fully without reservation for the first time in years. "The rest of our composition is still being written." As if to emphasize his point, he pulled her gently into a dance there in the empty park. No music but the rhythm of possibility between them. "I thought you didn't dance," Olivia teased, following his lead. "I'm learning to remember," Jackson replied, "one step at a time." Above them, stars emerged against the darkening sky, distant witnesses to the simple truth that healing rarely comes in dramatic revelations, but in quiet moments of choice, in choosing connection over isolation, in choosing to begin again, even when the melody seems lost. For Jackson Mercer and Olivia Bennett, this was merely the first movement of something larger, a symphony of second chances, playing note by careful note into an unwritten future.